Welcome to the On the Air podcast, a companion to On the Air magazine, a bi-monthly magazine from ARRL for beginner to intermediate ham radio licensees. I'm your host and the editor of On the Air, Becky Schoenfeld, W1BXY. Every month, the On the Air podcast extends material found in On the Air magazine to help you learn about the many things that the ham radio hobby and service has to offer. The On the Air podcast is sponsored by ICOM for the love of ham radio. Welcome to the March 2026 episode. Every issue of On the Air features an article that ties into ARRL's On the Air Live monthly live stream that presents a new ham radio topic each month in a format that allows you, the viewer, to ask questions and have them answered in real time. In the March-April 2026 issue of On the Air, the On the Air Live article presented basic instructions for building and installing a 2-meter ground plane antenna. As an introduction to the deeper dive on this antenna that will be presented in the upcoming On the Air Live session on March 24th. Here to talk a bit more about the antenna project is ARRL Education Specialist and host of On the Air Live, Wayne Greene, KB4DSF. Welcome, Wayne.
Thanks so much, Becky. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in the March-April 2026 issue of On the Air, you mentioned that you already had a ground plane antenna for the 2-meter band up in your attic, but it wasn't getting you into some repeaters about 35 miles from your home that you wanted to be able to access. So you decided to build another ground plane for 2 meters that you could set up outside, which resulted in the antenna that you've outlined in the March-April 2026 article. What made you want to share this antenna build with the On the Air audience?
I think it was more about kind of thinking outside the box. Like for the antenna that I had in the attic, it was the idea that I knew I wasn't going to be able to get to the repeaters that I wanted to get to. And I was able to hit our local repeater just fine, and it was fine also for most of the VHF simplex. Here in our area, we have a VHF simplex net, and I could get into that decently well. But I just wanted to expand that. I wanted to be able to get into that net even better. But then we have repeaters about 35 miles out in neighboring counties, and I wanted to be able to reach those as well. So just started thinking about how I could do that, do it by building something rather than buying something. I could have easily bought like a GP9 antenna to make that happen. But the other thing too is I don't have a tower. I don't have really a way of installing an antenna at any kind of height above like the roof of my house. So I just started thinking it through, and I came up with the idea that I came up with, and I thought maybe other people would like to be able to see that and give them the opportunity also, or the idea that thinking outside the box could happen. So
this antenna is made from really easy to source, relatively inexpensive materials. And it looks like it doesn't require any really advanced construction techniques. It looks pretty accessible for somebody who is relatively new to building, maybe somebody who wants to try building an antenna, but they don't want to have to spend a lot of money to do it. They don't want to have to buy a bunch of special tools. It really does look like a fairly simple, accessible project.
it is for sure. And it's easily sourced. All the wires that I used, I already had here from other electrical projects that I'd worked on. But everything that if you don't have the wire, you can get it at a big box store, and as you can see, you don't need a lot of it either. A couple different sizes. I did that on purpose, and then the idea was to make it a little bit more ruggedized so it would be able to withstand the elements outside.
So you built this antenna so you could get into these repeaters that were a little more distant for you.
Right.
But what other kinds of things might an antenna like this be good for?
So the simplex side, I mentioned this a while ago. We have a VHF simplex net, which we do that on every Tuesday night. So Yeah, every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, we have a VHF simplex net. We do that purposefully. I'm also with our Aries here in where I live, and our comms plan includes a lot of simplex work
Mm,
rather than going through a repeater. Our repeater has backup power, but it's battery. So we learned through after Helene that we will lose that battery. So we do a lot of simplex. We do practice a lot of simplex. So I wanted to make sure that I had something that was a bit more capable simplex wide.
mhm.
APRS, again, we have a really good APRS
Um,
digipeater here, but there's another one that's well, it's about 35 miles out as well, and now I'm able to hit that one with this repeater. I mean, I'm sorry, with this antenna. Um, so yeah, pretty much anything that you want to do with VHF, it's if we have the extra height and a good antenna, it's just going to increase your odds of being successful.
Now, I know that in the article you talk about you had to get a little creative with mounting this antenna. You know, you mentioned you don't have a tower. Not everybody has, the property that's suitable for a tower. Not everybody has neighbors that would be friendly to having a tower next door to them. So what did you do to deploy this antenna to get you the height that this antenna needed?
Yeah, so way back in the day, I had a fishing rod that was specifically for hanging antennas, had a weight on there, a fairly sizable sinker, and I would use that to get the height. But I think within the last 2 years, I started doing some arbor work here in our yard. We have quite a number of oak trees and here, so picked up an arbor's line and our arbor's weight, and then the box for being able to hold all of that. And it's literally become like a new hobby for me. I've gotten really, really good at being able to use the weight, and I have three different sizes of weights depending on what it is I want to do. But so to give you an idea, my off-center fed dipole covers 80 through 10. Each end of that is at about 67 feet now, because of being able to being able to effectively use the weight. It takes some practice.
Mm,
For this antenna, I wanted to get at least 50 feet, which is very easy for me to do with the setup. And so I found a limb. Again, I've got plenty of trees. I found a limb that was it's about 55 feet up. So I was able to toss over that, and I can haul the antenna up to about the 50-foot mark, if you will. And the nice thing about that is it keeps the antenna kind of out in the open. It's not up against any of the branches. Foliage is not going to become a problem either. So it just makes a really good way for it to be there. So that was my creative way, if you will,
mhm.
of getting this thing mounted. So yeah, and I enjoy using the weights. Anytime I get to throw something around, that's cool.
And with the weights and the line, are you doing that manually, or do you have a launcher? How are you doing that?
I'm doing it 100% manually. I
Yeah.
don't have a launcher. Yeah. And I've got about three different types of pitches that I use,
Mhm,
depending on what angle or height I'm trying to get. So,
mhm.
but no, I don't have a launcher. I'm afraid I would be dangerous with that.
Yeah, the launchers are fun, but yeah, sometimes there's nothing like just uh, good old get your pitching arm ready.
Yeah, it's very simple on the equipment as well. It's just me and a rope and just tossing the line. I don't have to worry about compressed air or anything like that. So it works for me. It works really well. There's a multitude of other ways to do this, but if anything else from this article, if people started thinking a little bit differently about how they can get an antenna built and then get it outside, they'll find that they could be just as effective as anybody that's got an antenna and a commercially bought
Yeah.
a tower and a commercially bought antenna, right?
Mm,
So the article goes through, it's got a parts list. It has, the basic steps of how you twist the wire to create the elements. It walks through a little bit of how you deployed the antenna. And really, I feel like the basics are there, that if someone wanted to just work with the article, they could build this antenna. What are you going to go through in the On the Air live session on March 24th to augment this?
I'm going to talk more about how I came up with the size of the elements. Of course, did the math to do that. How I ended up trimming up the antenna in order to get this one is giving me about 1.2 to 1 all across the VHF amateur VHF band. And the reason why that is, because each of the elements are they're pretty wide or in diameter, if you will, considerably, or in consideration. So that's what helps give me that that nice VHF bandwidth. Why I soldered the ends of the of each of the elements, and then why I selected the sizes that I selected. The other thing is I'm going to get into a little bit about the math as well. When we talk about VHF, and when I'm talking about math is finding out about how high you might need in order to get a distance that you're looking for. When we think about VHF, we know about how foliage and obstacles and buildings and such can get in the way of your signal, but we don't think much, at least I don't think we do, and I'm trying to change that a little bit. We don't think much that really our biggest enemy is the curvature of the Earth. This is VHF is line of sight. Line of sight-ish. Everything in radio tends to be ish, right? Because you do get that little bit of a bend on a VHF signal. So I'm going to get more in detail about that and how to use the math to try to make a determination of what your height should be. Obviously, nothing in the world works exactly like the math does. Math is great for trying to figure things out, but for this, it's going to get you really close. But RF does what RF does. For instance, for the VHF net, we got one guy who lives 20 miles away from the guy that runs the net. He's got a Yagi. It's pointed right at him. Can't get there for one reason or the other. We got another guy that's 20 miles in the other direction, is able to hit our net control with an omnidirectional antenna. we were discussing this yesterday. We can't figure out why that's the case, but but anyway, the math is going to help you make some decisions about what kind of height. And so I want to talk about that a little bit more about how the curvature is really kind of our biggest enemy when we're trying to get distance.
Yeah, and if folks are afraid of the math, there is a little math in the article, and it's pretty simple. It's stuff that was on the technician test, and you do a good job of explaining that. So you're going to go into that in more detail, and so that'll be great. And folks will have that chance to ask questions if they're daunted by it at all. Are you going to go through? You're going to recreate any of the builds during the March 24th session?
It's possible. I don't have a lot of room here in this studio to do much, but I may have some short lengths of wire and just try to recreate what it looks like trying to twist it. And you can even tell in the image the twists aren't perfect. You're never going to get perfect twists, but that's just going to, in order to, when you twist it, it just gives that element more strength. But we're also going to talk about some of the areas where I still have to make some. I may have to make some changes for strength-wise, because there's still a couple of failure points, and I'm going to talk about those in the article. Now, I can say that I have had one of these antennas up before, and it was up, I think, a couple of years. I ended up having to take it down because I had to do some tree work. So I know it lasts at least 2 years, right? But there are some failure points that I need to point out, and I'm going to do that in the live stream.
Okay, great. So that live stream is coming up Tuesday, March 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern. And so what do folks have to do in order to attend that live stream?
So pre-registration is required. It's free. It's free to all ARRL members. The live stream itself will be held on learn.arrl.org, which is also where you will go to pre-register. So just go in there. Once you log in to the it's called the Learning Center. Once you log into the Learning Center, you'll find the icon for the upcoming live stream, and there's a registration button, and you literally just have to hit the button. Everything else kind of just happens by magic. So
great.
And you're ready to go. Yeah.
All right. So folks, you can pre-register now at learn.arrl.org. And if they miss the actual live stream on the 24th, it's recorded, right?
It is recorded, and
Yeah.
all the ones that we've done so far also they're available on the Learning Center, same address,
Mm.
and you can get to all the recorded sessions.
Great. So yeah, now you've been at it for a little over a year. There's a whole library of them.
It's a whole library.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on again, Wayne. That was great.
Thank you.
And, we'll look forward to the next On the Air Live on March 24th. So thanks again to Wayne Greene, KB4DSF, for joining us again today on the podcast. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. We will be back again in April. But in the meantime, feel free to send comments to OTA@ARRL.org. And if you're not already an ARRL member and you're interested to know what ARRL and amateur radio are all about, you can visit ARRL.org for a look at amateur radio and everything that ARRL has to offer. So until next time, I am Becky Schoenfeld, W1BXY 73.
73.